sixth graders, this is Mrs. Gall. For this lesson, you'll want your math notebook, a writing utensil, and a calculator. Let's go ahead and get started. The first type of problems that you're going to see are better by problems. In this situation, you're going to give a few different scenarios, and your job is to figure out which one of those scenarios is going to be the better buy, meaning which one is going to give you the most for the cheapest amount. So what we're going to look at here to really help us compare two sets is unit rate. Now there are other ways to compare. What you want to make sure that you're doing is you're getting the number of items to the same amount, and getting them both down to 1 is always a great strategy to use. Now sometimes there's another multiple those numbers will meet up with, and you can use that route as well, but you want to make sure the number of pens is the same before we can actually compare their pricing. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I like to start these out by finding unit rate, and that's the route I usually like to go to figure out which one is better. So if I set this up as $20 over 12 pens, I know my goal is to figure out what 1 pen equals. So to figure out what 1 pen equals, I'm going to want to divide by 12 because that's how I will get down to 1. 12 divided by 12 will give us 1 pen. Now I'm going to use my calculator to help me with 20 divided by 12 because you'll notice that's not a very clean division problem. So when I do that division, I end up with this decimal 1.66 repeating. So if I'm thinking about money, since I need to go to the hundredths place and the thousandths place is a 6, I'm going to round that up to $1.67 per pen. That's about how much it would be per pen for our first set. Now let's go to our second set and do the same thing. This is 15 pens for $27. So in order to compare these two, we want to get that down to 1 pen. So I'm going to set it up, $27 for 15 pens. And to get down to 1 pen, I'm going to have to divide by 15. Because dividing by 15 is the only way to get that 15 down to a 1. Since I'm dividing that bottom number by 15, I also need to divide that 27 by 15. I know 15 divided by 15 gives me 1 pen. I'm going to turn to my calculator for 27 divided by 15, and it turned out to a pretty nice decimal, 1.8. In the money world, I could just add a 0 after that 8 so that it's $1.80. So which set is cheaper? Well, the set that sells pens for about $1.67 would be a lot cheaper per pen. So my 12 pens for $20 is my better buy. Why don't you try a better buy problem? Would 30 books for $20 be a better buy, or 35 books for $25? Pause the video now to try this one on your own. When you're ready to see the answer, press play. All right, you guys, let's go through the answer. So if I were to set this up, again, I would want to put my books at the bottom because I'm going to want to compare, I'm going to want to figure out what 1 book would cost for unit rate here. So if I put 30 on the bottom, that means I need to divide by 30 to figure out what 1 book would cost. So I know 30 divided by 30 is 1. 20 divided by 30 is 0.6666, so 67 cents about per book. Okay, let's go over and look at our second rate, which was 35 books for $25. So I had $25 for 35 books. In order to figure out what 1 book would cost, I need to divide by 35. When I divide by 35, I know that's going to give me the cost of 1 book. And if I look at my calculator for 25 divided by 35, I get 0.714, kind of a long decimal, so I'm just going to round that to 71 cents. I'm not going to round it up to 72 because that thousandths place is a 4, so that does not require me to round that up. So let's look at our unit rates here. The 30 books for $20 had a unit rate of 67 cents. My 35 books for $25 had a unit rate of 71 cents. So my 30 books for $20, that was my better unit rate. So that is my better choice for my buy. Okay, the second type of problem that we're going to see is a solving problem by using our rate knowledge. So here we have company X. They are charging $15 for 120 minutes on your phone. At this rate, how much will the company charge for 200 minutes? So there are a lot of different ways to solve problems like this. You can use unit rate, you can use cross products. So you want to find a method that works well for you. But what you have to make sure you're doing is you're setting up the rates properly before you begin. So let's start. You can choose if you want to put the money or the minutes on the top. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'll do $15 for 120 minutes like this. That was my first rate, what company X charges, $15 for 120 minutes. Then I'm going to kind of set that equal to my other piece, which we have part of the rate, but we're missing another part of it. So if I set up the second rate, we don't know how much the company will charge. So the money I'm going to leave blank. And notice I want to keep the money across from the money. So that one's going to be left blank. But we know that we're trying to figure this out for 200 minutes. So I can put the time there, 200 minutes. Okay, so now there's a few different ways I can look at this. I can look at the connection from 120 to 200. I can say, okay, what do I need to multiply by to get from here to here? You could divide to figure out that connection, 200 divided by 120, since it's not a whole number, the connection isn't. But some other strategies we could do. We could figure out how much the company makes or charges for 1 minute. And then once we know 1 minute, we can times that by 200 to figure out 2 minutes. So let's see what happens here. So if I want to figure out what 1 minute is, I'm going to have to divide by 120, both of these numbers, to get that unit rate of 1 minute. So let's try that. So we have 120 divided by 120. That's going to give us 1 minute. Then we need to do, look at this, not 120 divided by 15. I probably should have wrote it this way. 15 divided by 120. Okay, that's going to give me 0.125. That makes sense, you guys, because 120 minutes to pay $15, that's a lot of time for $15. So 1 minute shouldn't cost very much. It only costs about 12 cents, almost 13 cents, but we'll keep the whole decimal as we're working through this. So that's 1 minute. So now that we know 1 minute, we can take it and multiply it by 200 to get 200 minutes. So we could do that here. 0.125 times 200 would give us $25. Okay, that's our unit rate strategy. Another strategy you could have used was cross products. We originally had, I'm just going to rewrite this down here, 15 over 120 equals an unknown over 200. We did this with a percent proportion. Look for the diagonal that has a number on either side. Multiply those. 15 times 200 gives me 3,000. Once you've multiplied those, divide by your third number, 120. When I take 3,000 and divide it by 120, I also end up with 25. So that was another way to get our total. Like I said, you could also look at the connection from 200 to 120 by dividing 200 and 120. And it's not a very good decimal. So then we would just take that and times it by 15, and that would also get us 25. So lots of different strategies for those rate problems. Why don't you try this one on your own? Pause the video and press play when you're ready to see the answer. All right, you guys, let's go through the answer. So an ice cream store makes 144 quarts of ice cream in 8 hours. I'm gonna set that up as my rate. At this rate, how many quarts could be made in 12 hours? Make sure you keep your hours across from hours. It's okay if your hours were up top, but mine are on bottom. That's okay. You should still get the same thing no matter how you did this. Okay, I could find unit rate. So I could figure out what was made in 1 hour by dividing both of these numbers by 8. I find out that there was 18 quarts made in 1 hour. And then I could take my 18 and my 1 and times them by 12 to get us up to 12 hours, which is 216 quarts. You could have also done cross products. 144 times 12 which is 1728, and then divided by 8 gives us 216 as well. All right, you guys, you're going to be doing some independent practice today that kind of matches this. Check in with your teacher if you have any questions.